Well, I guess this leads us to a subject worth talking about, which is it's very important to talk to the state or the substance, or if you don't talk to it, it won't talk to you. It follows the rules of ordinary etiquette, and it does not speak to strangers. But if you will say to it the simplest thing, like, hello, then it will say, hello. And you say, is someone there? It says, yes, ready and willing, what's up? But if you don't speak to it, it won't do that.
So today I'm coming to you from Shambhala Music Festival in Salmo, British Columbia. And I thought there's nowhere better to place to talk about my spiritual journey than right here. And one of the earliest memories I ever have, was where I was about, I'm going to guess, maybe 5 years old, maybe 6. And I was at the playground, and there was a bunch of kids talking. And one of them said to me that bad kids go to hell. And I got really, really concerned and really freaked out, because I'm like, what? Bad kids go to hell? As far as I was concerned, I was a bad kid. And I was really concerned, so I rushed home. Mommy, what is this hell thing? And what's going on? Like, trying to get explanations. And she tried to remember back to her upbringing of being an Anglican and how she was raised. And very quickly, she realized she couldn't answer all the questions I had. It was very much about the specifics and exactly what had to happen. And she didn't have the answers, so her and my dad decided to start sending me to the church down the road, the Baptist church where my dad actually used to go when he was younger. And, a couple things that happened from that is, one thing is I think I didn't trust my mom as much, like even on a subconscious level, that maybe she didn't have all the answers. Obviously, this is the first time I realized that Mom didn't know everything. And so that was really concerning to me. And, I suppose it also showed that maybe the church did have the answers. I don't really know. I really enjoyed going to the church. I really enjoyed all the games and the songs and the fun times. And if you ever watch the show True Blood, there's this part where Jason gets involved with the vampire-hating church group. But and at that place, he was a star, and he was like the king shit, if you will. And that's something that really happened. I felt that way. And so it was really easy to become a part of that. And, when I was in my early teens, I chose to do the prayer thing and become a Christian. But I never felt anything different. I never really felt like anything had changed with me. And I can't speak for anyone else, but that's just what I felt like. And, but I kept doing the thing. I still enjoyed the time I had there. Slowly but surely, I started to witness some things that I didn't enjoy so much. I remember there was an issue with one of the pastors, some form of adultery. I'm not exactly sure the specifics, but there was like a public shaming of this guy, where they basically they brought him up in front of the whole church body and basically publicly shamed him. And it was just didn't feel like anything Jesus would have done, If you look at the story, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And, but it didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me directly. So I was, I just kind of said, okay, well, that was weird, but I went about my business. After graduation, I decided I wanted to work with young people. I wanted to work with kids and maybe become a youth pastor. So I went to Bible college, and I got my bachelor's degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree. During that time, I decided, I wanted to have like spiritual experiences. I wanted to like really feel this God that I was claiming to believe in, you know what I mean? And I was talking about, and, and there was some sort of stuff, I suppose, but it was nothing real concrete that I could like put my finger on that really made it feel real to me. A lot of the time I really felt like I was faking this whole religion thing. But yeah, I kept pressing through it, and I kept trying to do the whole thing. And then right before graduation in my 4th year, something happened to somebody I really care about, where she got publicly shamed, and I got really mad. Like I was so angry at the way, and I knew that was something that the way that they made her feel, and the way it made me feel, it just, really angered me. And from that point on, I almost didn't trust the church anymore. But I kept, I kind of casually attended church for a while, and then, fast forward a few years, and 9/11 happened, and everyone remembers, at least if you're old enough, where they were when 9/11 happened, and I do. But I just took the government story to be the truth of it all, and then a few years later, somebody challenged me and said, I think it was in a video game. They told me that 9/11 was an inside job done by the government, and I told them I'd heard this before, and I was like, "You're crazy! You don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "No, it's true." And he added me as a friend and basically sent me this link to a video called 9/11 Mysteries. And I watched the video. And after watching the video, I was appalled. I wanted to prove them wrong. I spent the next week of my life. I had a week off work, and I just tried to prove this video wrong. And by the end of it, I couldn't. It really caused me to step back and question everything I believe in, and that includes religion. I witnessed another public shaming of one of my best friends, and the way that the church just totally treated him like crap, and they treated my family like shit, because when him and his wife split up, he stayed in my couch for a little while, and they treated my family like shit because we were willing to take him and let him stay with us, and that was almost the last straw for me. It rarely was the last straw for me. Combined with that, with my research into 9/11 and what I was learning, I didn't trust anything I'd believed in my whole life. So looking into things like 9/11 and then learning about the Bilderberg Group and all the conspiracy theory lore that we know about, it's deep, and there's a lot to know and a lot to learn and a lot of questions to be asked. And nowadays I try not to claim I know anything. I try to just say I have questions, and I would love to hear the answers to a lot of these questions. But during that whole time, I probably went atheist for about a week, I guess. A week of it was a long, hard week to just not believe in God and to not believe, and then after that week, I just said, no, there is something greater than me. There is something bigger at play that I just don't understand right now. And so that really stepped up probably a lot of my pursuits of other things. So a lot of my life after that point was spent on activism and working with, different groups, activist groups, and just trying to get the word out about, what the government was up to and the people behind the government, and just sharing the word. And then a few years after that, a tragedy kind of struck, and my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she was misdiagnosed actually for a long time, and then when they figured out what it was too late, and she ended up dying of lung cancer in April of 2009, I believe, and then which we were kind of prepared for. We knew something was wrong a long time, and so we were kind of prepared for that. But a month later, my dad ended up. I think I was the last person to talk to him. He called me. And he was really upset. He was crying, and he was just really missing Mom. And I just talked to him. I was like, "Dad, it's okay. You're gonna be okay." He was planning on coming up to see my kids, the next day. And I was telling him it's gonna be okay. And I don't think I'd ever heard him so drunk in my life. And then I hung up the phone. And then the next day, I got a phone call that he had had a heart attack in his sleep. And I would say he died of a broken heart more than anything. And I don't see this for sympathy. A lot of people, when I tell this stories, obviously it's a big part of my life, but I don't say it for sympathy because I had the most amazing parents that could have ever lived. And I would rather have, I say this a lot, that I would rather have the amazing parents I had that died too soon than shitty ones that are still here. So I consider myself lucky, very blessed. So don't ever think that I feel any other way, and don't feel sorry for me. But after that had happened, after my parents had passed away, it shook. It definitely shook me. But kind of weird things started to happen, things that I couldn't explain. And I'll give you just a few examples of them. It's kind of funny. One time I was at a party hanging out with some people, and somebody handed me a book. Oh, took a look at this and like, yeah, okay, whatever. very condescending that I was. You know, all right, yeah, sure, astrology. And then I read this book, and it just blew my mind. It was like, I knew me very well, and this book clearly knew me very well. It was like it had known me my whole life. It wasn't just a line or two. It was a whole page of detailed information. I believe the book was The Element Guide to Birthdays by Teresa Chung. And it said that my number one negative thing was that I was condescending. That when I talked down to people with my very opinionated, and I talked down to people when I felt I knew and I felt they were wrong. And that just opened my mind to, like, wow, like, what else don't I know? And, you know, that carried on to other things like tarot cards. Somebody one time handed me a deck of tarot cards and said, pick a card. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, lady, tarot cards. And I shuffled these cards for about 10 minutes while we were just in conversation. And we were talking about, at the time, you know, how much I drank and my addiction issues. And I said, okay, yeah, all right, now let's pick a tarot card, right? And I did, and it was just, we were talking about, it was just that something that had been zapping my vital energy, and that, and it just, once again, blew my mind. And so, you know, I'll fast forward a little bit from there. There's lots of little things like that, and one day I was listening to the Howard Stern show, and he was talking about meditation. I was working in the oil field, and I felt this little in the back of my mind, or like something just pushed me, hey, you're supposed to listen to this right now. You're supposed to hear this. And so I did, and you know, Howard Stern was talking about meditation, and I just knew I was supposed to meditate, that was something I was supposed to do. So I did. I started meditating, and yeah, it was really good for me. At first, the first day I did it, I didn't really feel anything, and even within the first few days, but after about 4 days of meditating, you know, 15 minutes a day, I just could really feel a difference in my life. And I just started, you know, learning meditating quite often. I started like meditating or prayer. I consider those two things to be, you know, the focusing of your energy. I started like going outside the local hemp shop and I would like go outside the shop, and I'd like meditate for like, leave me a book I need to read today, and I'd go in and get the book. I'd go inside, and very quickly I'd find a book, and the first time I got this book, I kind of read it, or it was Carlos Castaneda, and he was all talking about, you know, spirit allies and stuff like that, and it didn't really blast my mind like I was kind of hoping it would, like a lot, but it was interesting, and so I read the book, and I kind of wondered if my meditation was broken. So I finished the book, and then I went back to the same store, and I tried again, and I meditated outside the hemp shop, and I went inside, and right away I found this book called Spirit Allies, and I knew immediately that, oh, it was all about meeting your team on the other side. It was all about meeting spirits, and I just knew that the Carlos Castaneda book was a precursor. It was like a pre-reading before this book, and I got this book called Spirit Allies. By Christopher somebody, I can't remember right now, and I took it home and I started reading it, and the first 6 pages, or six chapters or so, were just all meditative exercises, all about, you know, protecting yourself, and it was good because I was able to kind of go through that pretty quickly because I'd already been meditating for a while. And then on the next chapter, it was basically all about how to do a seance, if you will, or they didn't use that word. It was about building a safe place inside yourself, and then calling upon, you know, your spirit helpers to come to you. And so I did, and I did just like it said, and I waited there in the dark, with the candle, and I was waiting for something to happen. And at first, nothing really happened, and then all of a sudden, I felt this like kind of tingling on my arm, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, and I just shrugged it off. It's like, okay, though, it's just me being crazy. Then all of a sudden, it just felt like somebody was pressing against me, you know, like just pushing on against me. And I was like, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, it was this whoosh, this rush of energy, and it was my mom, and it was her spirit, and I knew it, and I just started bawling and crying, and I had a little conversation with her, and I was like, where have you been all this time? And she says to me, she's like, don't even see, I've been there the whole time, and you thought, when this happened, you know, that was me. She reminded me of a time when I was in a car, almost in a car accident, and like just drove through this herd of elk, and welcome to Canada, and she's like, I was there, and that was the most real spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. And some people would say, well, that was just your imagination, that was whatever. But I had done enough drugs in my life, and I was stone sober during that I knew that nobody will take that away from me. Like I know, I know my heart of hearts what that was, and that was her. And it's awesome. Like ever since then, I just never felt alone, and I know that we're not alone, and I know that and my spiritual search hasn't stopped there. Like even being led here to Shambhala my first time, I almost wasn't able to go. My card broke down, and I didn't think I was able to go, and then all of a sudden another car came up, and I was whisked here, and I just I've seen so much here at this place, and that's why I feel this is the best place to talk about things like that, because even being here now, like completely sober for today, and my next video I'll talk a little bit about drugs and about psychedelics and about what I plan to experience here and how that's being thwarted by the government. But I think that's probably enough for today, just explaining about a little bit about my spiritual journey, and that to encourage people that all of this is connected, that we're all connected to everything. And thank you very much for your time. I hope this is beneficial to you. The only thing I could say to encourage you is that you're not alone, and that there is something greater than you. And if you don't, if maybe you're an atheist or whatever, and that's interesting, because then you're taking a position that you can know that there's nothing bigger than you. But if you don't know, then how do you know? So my biggest advice to you is to talk to whatever it is, to your team, to the divine source. And I don't say God is a God that is out there. I believe that we are all connected to that divine spark, that we are all God. I think that's one of the biggest missteps of the church, is that it's tried to take it that, Jesus was the only God as man, and that there will never be another one like him. Or, in possible Judaism, that they're still waiting for that God who is man to come. But I think that's a big deception, and I think that a lot of religion, is either intentionally or not, has come about to separate us from our divinity, and that's a great injustice. But don't be afraid to start talking to God, to whoever. Meditate. I highly recommend meditation. Even doing breathing exercises in the shower is always a good way to talk to whoever's listening in the shower, because you're not alone, and you'll never be alone. So thank you very much for your time, and God bless. Namaste.